What if that unfulfilled dream that you feel bubbling inside of you, that will not leave you alone and is driving you crazy, is the key to opening your heart and living a life full of freedom and impact and service? I know that frustrating feeling of having something stuck inside and unsure what it is or how to get it out, because it happened to me. So today I want to talk to you about how I did get it out, how to begin unlocking that dream. And this video is going to serve two purposes. One, I'm going to tell you how you can do this on your own. And also I'm going to tell you about a cohort, a container that I have starting in the middle of June if you want help, if you resonate with me. In either instance, at the heart of this work is the Venus sequence. This deep dive into unpicking the weave of our wounding patterns, starting to see our limiting beliefs so that we stop tripping ourselves up over and over and over again as we try and bring this thing out into the world. We've got to do the deep heart work first so that then the thing that we create is pure, is true, and we are starting from a good seed. Also, I want you to understand that there are forces that are much bigger than we realize at play here. And it's actually what's behind me on the board. I'm going to get into it a little bit more later. Courtney King, PhD neuroscientist, and myself have put together a process combining the gene keys, Hermetic philosophy, Jungian psychology, and the field of neuroscience to help open your heart and step into this prosperity. Before I found my life's work, my true purpose, I felt like I had all this energy inside, all this stuff swirling around, but I had no form to it. There was no way to get it out. And even if I could, I didn't think that the world would see it as valuable. And so if you're feeling that way, I want to talk about a couple of fields that I have identified. So the first I call the field of distortion. And in the center of that field is your ego self. And it is driven by limiting beliefs, these stories that we take on in our childhood, things like I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. And then throw in our past and future. So we as humans are machines at making predictions. And so we look at our past, all the big and little t traumas that happened, and we predict that the future is going to be the same. And it keeps us stuck in fear. So this field in red here is keeping us lodged in, and we desperately from this place are reaching for purpose and stability and connection and play and trust and creativity, but we can't quite get there. And what we have to learn to do is step into what I call the field of synchronicity. And when we do that, what happens is our true self realizes that all of those things that we were reaching for outside, that stability and connection and play and purpose, etc., has been a part of us the entire time. And when we realize that, this field of synchronicity forms around us, a miracle field, if you will. And we begin to show up in service with impact and freedom, and we're tapped into our true genius, and our heart is open in love, and we feel peaceful. It is a beautiful transition. And so the reason that you are stuck here is because you are focused on the wrong things. And today I want to help you to see that. You're reaching out instead of releasing from within. This work, this journey is all about taking off layers, taking off conditioning that we have brought in throughout our lives. And it happens because of the society and culture that we're in, which is locked into a lower vibrational frequency, the shadow frequency, if you will. And it tells you that you're not good enough, that you're not going to be able to figure this out. And so we start looking outside of ourselves at what has worked for other people. The problem with that is that genius is not imitative. It has to come from within you. So, how did I myself make this leap, and how did I work with 10 people to get to the other side of this process? Courtney and I have identified 3 things you need to make the leap from the field of distortion to the field of synchronicity. And the first thing is stability. Let me tell you what I mean by that. It's an ability to stay centered, to stay true to yourself, regardless of what is happening with the external circumstances. And if you're anything like me, you might feel like you need a few things to feel more stable. And I want to tell you why that thinking might be the very thing that is keeping you stuck. P.S. These thoughts are not your fault. It's what society tells us is true. First is time and money. In other words, we need to get the outer circumstances right so that we feel more safe inside. So I want to tell you a story from my life, actually. I had a business. I started it in 2017. I had 30 members. I was by myself. I was in 2,600 square feet, and I was doing $5,000 a month in revenue. Fast forward a few years, I was in 8,000 square feet. I had a team of 20 people working for me. I had 300 members, and I was doing $85,000 a month in revenue. So in theory, I had much more time because I had 20 people working for me, and so I could outsource anything that I didn't want to do. And I certainly had much more money. And yet, I was the most unstable I had ever been in that moment. So the truth is that what we really want is what's in the gene keys called core stability, which isn't dependent on outer circumstances or anything outside of yourself. It's an ability to create internal safety. And the way that we do that is through a few things. First, we've got to work on our awareness system. In other words, I've got to be able to create a gap between what I'm thinking and feeling and what I'm doing out in the outer world. The other piece is the nervous system. If you are constantly in fight, flight, or freeze, you are just not going to be able to relax and have this sense of stability. You're constantly scanning the environment for the next threat. The next piece that we need for this stability is devotion, or more specifically, devotional practices. As humans, we are constantly stuck in the pain and pleasure cycle. I'm trying to avoid pain, and I'm trying to chase pleasure. And oftentimes when we chase that pleasure, it's the very thing that creates the pain. And so what's required here is a bit of discipline via new practices to be able to start to break our old pattern behavior. Because every time we follow out a habit behavior, it keeps us stuck in this loop. Have you ever decided you're going to change a behavior pattern? Like you put your foot down, you commit. And then fast forward 3 months, you look back and somehow you're in a worse place than when you started. So what we need to do when we change a behavior or a pattern is create an environment in which we can actually see the shifts. The issue is that the feedback time is too long from you making the change and you seeing the changes in the external world. But there are ways that we can hack that we can bring the feedback to us a little bit sooner. And that brings me to the second thing that we need in order to make this leap from the field of distortion to the field of synchronicity. And that, my friends, is a support structure. One of the things I hear all the time as people reach out to me almost every day asking for guidance and support is, I'm not a group person. There is a phase where you need to be alone. That is where deep insight comes from. However, that needs to be balanced with, in the gene keys, it's called the sphere of your culture. It needs to be balanced with your environment, with the people around you. It's both. When you go out into the world, you are going to be stepping on landmines left and right, and you're going to sabotage yourself, and you're going to throw yourself back into the same stuck loop that you were in before. What we need in order for that not to happen is one word: a mirror. I need a reflection in another person. Again, I'm going to tell you a story from my life. Those of you that have been following me for a while know that I was a drug addict. I found weed and alcohol at 13, ecstasy and cocaine at 15, and Oxycontin and heroin at 16. And by the grace of God, somehow I made my way into recovery. And in recovery, one of the things you hear over and over and over again is that you must surround yourself with a support system, a group of people that are on the same path as you. However, we can't just change the external. We can't just change our group without also addressing what is happening inside. So in my recovery, when I was 18 years old, I ran away to Florida. I'm from Boston, thinking if I can only get out of this environment, away from these people, everything will be different. And guess what? Within 2 months of me making my way to Florida, I had found heroin and the exact same loop had begun. So the order does matter here. We work on the internal shifts and changes first, we commit to that, and we surround ourselves with a group that helps us through that process. So if you are called to do this work with me, obviously I am going to curate a group. However, if you're doing this alone, I want to give you some things that you should be thinking about as you are setting up this feedback system for yourself. First is, ideally, these would be people that are on a similar path. Now, that doesn't mean that they need to be doing the same thing as you. It doesn't even mean that they need to have the same beliefs as you. But it does mean that there's some overlap in your worldview, because you need to be able to externalize your journey. You need to be able to see in the other things that are happening inside of you. It's so much easier to see it in another person. In other words, we're trying to make the unconscious conscious. The other thing that you need in this group is a contagious energy. And that energy is courage. Courage is contagious. So as you're looking for people, it needs to be people that are willing to do big, scary things, willing to change their lives. Because it is that courage that is going to lead to a leap. Because that's what it is. From the field of distortion to the field of synchronicity is not a meander, it is a leap. And we're crossing a chasm, and we don't have wings when we jump. We make them on the way. And so you need to be around other people that are going to give an environment that is conducive to that leap. So again, quick story here. Jill was in my last cohort. And she is somebody that is brilliant and has so much to share with the world, and doesn't fully believe that, at least didn't fully believe that. One of the pieces of her work is a therapy system called Family Constellation, and she had the brilliant idea to combine family constellation work with the Gene Keys work. And together, through bringing it into the container that we had, where she felt safe and she had relationships with all these people, we tried it. It was absolutely incredible, and now pathways are starting to open to potentially bring this out into the world. So if you do this with me, the plan here is to give you an opportunity to workshop your ideas. Again, in the Gene Keys, we talk about a couple different spheres. One being your brand. And your brand is all about your tone, your energy, your aura, how other people feel you. However, that is connected to the sphere known as your culture, which is how the collective receives you, how people hear your message. And so what we do is we connect to that deep impulse, that truth for you, and then using the group, we learn the language, the way to talk about it, what frequency we need to use so that it resonates with the culture. And that is going to give you an opportunity to hone what it is you're saying, but also it's going to give you an opportunity for you to share your wisdom with other people in the container. In other words, to be of service. And I'm telling you, service is the #1 key to creating that miracle field. So if, like me, your outer was not matching the inner, it's probably because you are blind to what is happening. You can't see it. It's not externalized in another. And this is coming from somebody who has a first line in vocation. For those that don't know, that means that I'm designed to go within myself and create something, to bring it out. And I'm also a line 1 in my culture, which is the line of an entrepreneur. So both of those are very self and isolated. And yet still, even for me, this was the thing that I was missing. That once I added it, led to the explosion that's brought you here right now. On the other side of finding your support and finding your stability, which those two things are the structure, the support system and our inner stability create a structure that allows our hearts, our bellies, and our minds to be free and to have fun and to play. And that is the third part that is necessary for this leap from the field of distortion to the field of synchronicity. It's a sense of fun, of joy, and of play. If you are like me, life got so serious. I just got tighter and tighter and thought I needed to put more and more of the world on my back, and eventually it's what broke me. So when I was 25 years old, I had my daughter, 14 years ago. And when she was born, I had a life-changing moment because I felt nothing. It brought me shame for a very long time. I hear stories of all these dads who are just crying and so excited to have a child, and I felt nothing because I had gotten so serious that I had just shut everything down. I'd been so hurt that I had to disconnect myself from feeling anything. The problem with that is if you shut yourself down from feeling pain, you also shut yourself down from feeling joy. So how do we begin to reconnect with that sense of play and fun? The answer is creativity. We have got to reconnect with this sense of creativity. It's what the gift frequency is all about. And creativity is not just for artists. We are all, with every action that we take, adding a brushstroke to our lives. So if that's what you're telling yourself, if you're saying, I'm not a creative person, we've got to stop that. And we've got to step into an understanding that everything that we do is responding creatively to the outer world. So the question becomes, how do you turn yourself into the artist of your life? And the first thing for creativity is we've got to remove pressure. In other words, you cannot care about the outcomes. Your job is to go within, to make something, and to get it out. From there, we let go. Next, in that process, we can't need to know what we're making. We can't go into it with a step-by-step process or a step-by-step plan. By definition, creativity comes from the unknown. It comes from the void. So we've got to let go a little bit of our needing to know, of our planning. We must, I'll put this one over here, reduce complexity. Creativity cannot flow when life is complex. We must simplify. So another story from when I had my last business. I was sitting in my office one day, looking at spreadsheets, miserable, and I was listening outside. And I heard all of my coaches out there having so much fun. And all I could think to myself is, how did I get here? You started to be a coach, and now all you do is look at your computer all day, maybe have meetings or sales appointments. I was so disconnected because everything had gotten so complex. Creativity is about frequency. And we can raise our frequency by shedding weight. by reducing complexity. It makes us feel lighter. The other thing that we can do to raise our frequency is to be of service. As I already said, that is the key to all of this. When I show up in service, it is a signal to the universe that you are putting energy back into the whole, and therefore you create a vacuum and you require more energy so that you can give more back to the whole. And so it spirals upward when we start to serve. I know it can feel scary, but if you want to live to your highest potential, you have got to share yourself and what you're making with the world. It could be on Instagram, you could do Substack, you could do YouTube videos like I do, or it might not be online at all. So don't think that you need to, I'm saying that this is all digital. You can do this in person, and every interaction that you have, you just have got to share. This video that you're watching right now is the pinnacle of this story unfolding for me. Last year, I started posting videos to YouTube because I just had this impulse inside of me, and it was a way for me to learn and grow and share. 6 months later, people started reaching out to me and being like, dude, I want to work with you. Are you doing anything? And I just kept telling them no and turning them away until finally I was like, why are you doing this? And so I started working with people, and the channel rapidly began to grow. And in 6 months, I made $88,000 by stepping into this field of synchronicity, by trusting, by reconnecting to the spirit of fun and play. There's a guy, I'll call him Tom, in the last cohort that I worked with, who had this thing in him, and it morphed a couple different times. He thought he was going to offer this program called biogeometry. That kind of morphed and changed. He thought he might go into the health world. That morphed and changed. And then he realized that what it is aligned sales. So we set the structure so that that transformation and play and these ideas could flow through. And that idea came from the void, and now he is helping entrepreneurs who have a desire to create real change, real positive impact in the world, but don't know how to get people to buy into what it is that they're doing. He's helping them get their message out there. The time to make these changes, to create inner or core stability, to set up a supportive group and to reconnect to your sense of fun and play is today. Any delay is coming from the field of distortion. It's trying to keep you stuck so that you don't have to step into the unknown. I'm telling you right now, though, listen to me. If you do these things, your life will change. So you don't need to shift the external circumstances before you start. It's the starting that shifts the circumstances. And I really want you to understand that you do not need me to go through this process. I know that's funny as I'm talking about this thing that I'm doing, but you've got all the wisdom that you need inside of yourself. That said, I do feel like this is my life's work, helping people to cross this giant chasm. I have the 32nd gene key in my life's work, whose shadow is failure and gift is preservation. It's all about stopping running away from the things that we don't want, trying to avoid failure, and instead running towards the things we do want. In other words, getting this dream that we've had out into the world. Also, I'm a 6'2", which is the archetype of the role model. I went through this process and I want to model it for you. I want to help you. I want you to know that it's gonna be okay on the other side. So if you feel drawn to my work and you want support from a Brené Brown-esque neuroscientist and a crew of other people going through the journey with you, this is going to be an 18-week cohort that I am kicking off in the middle of June. In addition to the group side of things, there's also some one-on-one components throughout the process with yours truly and with Courtney. We're gonna have weekly calls where we work on actual things that are happening in your life. We're going to have a curriculum that we teach different concepts and ideas to help you learn and grow and develop. We're going to pull in outside experts to come and offer different things to you, and we'll have specialty calls focusing on specific things that pop up as we go. Part of the work here is going to be on softening the area around the heart, beginning to open your heart to the world. And we're going to do that with the Gene Keys Venus sequence, and that program is going to be included. Then we're going to pair that Venus work, which, remember, the Venus work is there so that we don't constantly trip ourselves up, so that we're not in fear of being seen, so that we don't, whenever somebody says something, get pulled out of center and end up yelling at them or collapsing down and in. We've got to do the heart work first so that we can break free of these loops. But we're pairing the heart work with service work and creativity work. So each week we'll have an inner component and a creativity component. And I want you to know this is not some big, nebulous, fuzzy offer. This is personalized for you. One-to-one connection, specific resources that you need. And if this isn't a hell yes in every cell of your being, it's a no. Honor yourself in making this decision. That said, if you do feel a yes, let's connect. I explained what we're going to do, but I didn't explain how we're going to do it. And that's what the connection time will be for. I'm taking 15 people. So if you feel called, let's have a chat, and we'll see if this is the right fit on my end and on your end. One last thing is I want you to know this is not for you. If you haven't done any wisdom study at all, meaning you haven't looked at, it doesn't need to be the Gene Keys, but the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, you name it, I don't care, the Vedas, you need to do some of that on your own. There is some individual work that needs to happen before we come into this cohort so that we're in the right place for this work to be successful. Next, ideally you would have some stilling practice. So that might be a meditation practice, a contemplation practice, you might take long walks. If not, you certainly must be open to a stilling practice. And then lastly, ideally you will have had some exposure to shadow work, to looking at the darker parts of ourselves, the parts that keep tripping us up and are stuck. So thank you for listening to me. Hopefully I'll see you soon.